Hundreds of thousands of healthcare workers have been infected. There is no official global death toll. Data has not been systematically collected. But more than 1,000 doctors and nurses around the world are known to have died from COVID-19.
And we hope to support you in any way possible. Thank you and stay safe.
The coronavirus pandemic is shining a special spotlight on how nurses put their lives on the line every single day to help out others.
Basically, I just spent the last 13 hours treating 2 critically ill COVID patients on the vent, basically by myself. And this is my new normal for the next however many months that it takes for this virus to die down. So, I'm already breaking. So for fuck's sake, people, please take this seriously. This is so bad.
Nursing's hard to begin with. It's a hard job, but having that fear of now your job may potentially kill you or kill someone in your family was heavy on all our hearts, because as a nurse, you always first thought is you want to run in and be in the rooms as much as possible and be there at the bedside for whatever your patient needs, holding their hand, anything. But with this added pressure of every time I'm in there, breathing in the air that they're breathing out is putting me at risk. So
today, as a thank you, the Howard Hughes Corporation donated 500 cupcakes, along with some Las Vegas Aviators swag to nurses on the front line here in Las Vegas.
It's really sad. We're the most underpaid nurses in Bucks County.
Holiday displays across the country are being dedicated to frontline workers.
The hospital had the whole summer, and they wasted it. They admitted they were 15 years behind with wages and didn't want us to have say in our ratios with our patients. They made this choice, and now we're here because of their choices.
More than 240 nurses have left St. Mary's over the last 2 years and gone to area hospitals where they get paid more.
The nurses and their union say they're facing a serious staffing shortage even as they deal with the pandemic. They say some nurses are caring for 7 patients when they should only be caring for 3 or 4.
What that means is the call bells are not being answered. There's a human being behind that call bell with a need, okay? And I have heard call bells ring for a half hour.
They blame St. Mary's owner, Trinity Health Systems, for the shortages.
Welcome everybody to the first official meeting of you guys as an official executive board of a legally recognized local union.
My name is Donna Halpern, and I'm a registered nurse at St. Mary Medical Center. I've been a nurse there for 16 years.
I've been a nurse for 42 years, working at current hospital, St. Mary, for 38.
My name is Robert Bozak. I'm a critical care nurse at St. Mary Medical Center. I've been at St. Mary for approximately pushing 13 years.
So St. Mary Medical Center, once Trinity purchased us, our hospital really went downhill from there.
The things that Trinity started to do was cut. They began to cut supplies, cut the quality of supplies.
Nurses started to leave for other hospitals in our own backyard because they were paying salaries upwards of 23% more than St. Mary's had been.
And then they began to silence those of us who had any concerns about that.
They killed my team, and they never looked back, and they basically tried to erase us off the map. You will find no awards. We were awarded for 5 years. You'll see nothing on their websites referring to it. It's Get With the Guidelines resuscitation. You will see nothing because they basically wanted us erased.
We remember how it used to be when the organization actually cared for patients and nurses. And with Trinity purchasing the hospital, that just totally went down the drain, so we had to do something.
When it comes down to patients being safe versus something being cheaper, that turned me. I mean, they saved probably $600,000 a year, and what they lost for people is, I mean, I don't even want to get it. It's pretty bad.
And that's where we drew the line and said no more.
So between the leverage of the insurance companies and the healthcare systems against each other, the patients don't have leverage, and the nurses are their only advocate left.
But if you feel as though that you need a voice, that you're not being treated fairly, and you're not able to get your manager or administration to address your needs, what other choice do you really have? What other avenue do you have?
I mean, the politicians could do it, but the lobbies take care of that.
Well, initially we met with the new CEO, his name is James Woodward, and the first thing he said, there was 12 of us, and some of us are still here, who formed a nursing stewardship and advocacy committee. And we said to him, listen, we don't need a union, we can do this on our own. Just work with us, talk with us, stay open, communicate. And the first thing that came out of his mouth is, I will not negotiate with nurses. And I was the chairperson of this committee. And I said, excuse me? And he said, you heard me, I will not negotiate with nurses. And at that point I realized we're dead in the water. We have to organize, and we have to advocate for ourselves, because this Trinity is a multi-million-dollar corporation. They have turned healthcare into health business.
I was one of 4 people who started the organization campaign.
You know, at one point I had gotten 180 some odd signatures for one of our things.
We met at my twin brother's house for probably about a year before we started our campaign.
When you put the patient first, sometimes you have to shake things up.
While we were organizing the union, we were meeting in dark corners and houses with curtains drawn. We didn't know what to expect. We knew that our organization, Trinity, got wind that we were trying to organize, and they brought in some really scary people.
They began sending millions of dollars to St. Mary to help with the anti-union campaign, the Union Busters.
So right there showed us they have the money, but they just chose not to spend it on, or we should say reinvest it in their own staff.
Subhuman people that came in, and I'm not that judgmental routinely, but these people came in and they were just abhorrent, the things that they tried to do to bust our campaign up.
They pulled us into dark rooms and showed us videos and tried to brainwash us. And Trinity allowed this to happen to their nurses. They allowed them to be berated and spoken to harshly.
The first thing they did is they took mug shots of my twin brother and I, put it on a flyer, and said, are the Gentile brothers trying to foment division among our nurses?
So yes, we were all fearful of being fired.
Now, nurses don't talk about, we don't use the word foment division. That's a lawyer speak.
It was at that point we realized that they were just out to crush us, that there was really no intention of ever really meeting us halfway and trying to make our situation better.
And even before we unionized, I used to walk around the building just, if I go down to the lunch to get lunch, I would always take the stairs to get more exercise, you know? So I had been doing that for a very long time, and then when we went into this unionization thing, suddenly management had a problem with it. Because I was rounding, kind of.
Interestingly enough, everything they did that they thought was strategic and very clever actually backfired on them completely. Everyone who's known my twin brother and I know that we've done nothing but basically give our lives to this hospital and to our career. So the minute they saw us being defamed, they basically came to our aid and said, we don't know why they're doing this to you, but if they're doing this to you, there's something wrong.
It was really hard getting a lot of nurses on board to want a union.
So we had the med-surg nurses telling the maternal nurses, telling the critical care nurses, telling the surgical services nurses. See, in surgical services where I work, we have a whole different set of problems than they do on the critical care or in maternal health or in the emergency room. So we were so siloed that we did not know each other's stories. But one thing was clear, the common denominator was abuse in almost every one of these stories.
But you have conversations with a couple families, and then months and months go by, and you just realize how many of those conversations you've had changes your outlook on whether you need a union.
Patient satisfaction was being affected, patient outcome was being affected, and it was happening in all levels. And we did not know that until we started to get together and hear each other's stories. And the more we got to know each other and work together side by side, we are now brothers. And that's pretty amazing. When you can have somebody who watches Fox News and somebody who watches CNN come together and hug each other and really love each other and know that we're working for the same reason. You know, they counted every vote in front of us, and it went from 9:30 to about 11:30. It took 2 hours to count it, and that's the state counting these votes, paper votes. And it was painful, it was tense, but in the end we won.
Our membership base right now is at 74% and gaining every day. And I think people are really seeing the benefits that we work so hard for.
That is the secret of American prosperity.
And when we won the vote to get the union, we thought that would be the end. Okay, we've got the union, now it's going to be clear sailing. We had no idea it would be a year and a half before we would negotiate our first contract.
We started out on a really good flow, and it seemed to have stalled. It seems like the economic portion of the contract and the first wave of COVID hit simultaneously.
We as a union, a newly formed union, began to demand PPE. They said they didn't have it. We went to the community, we got it from the community, then they hoarded it, they wouldn't let us use it.
We were being nurses and being administrators because, I mean, I brought in P100 masks and started teaching people what they were.
And we told Trinity that there was no way we were ever going to be prepared for this second wave, but they didn't do anything about it. They didn't do any additional hiring or preparations.
We already had issues with staffing and workload, and then you added COVID into it. And last week I was working with some COVID patients, and it's just insane.
You signed up for this. I signed up for this. I signed up for nursing. I signed up for pandemics. I didn't sign up for war. But this was a war.
It's a constant back and forth, like for 12 hours. It's like a fury. And when you're short-staffed, it leaves you tired.
No matter what you did, you could give your all for 12 hours wearing, you know, double masks and the entire PPE gear, and go in day after day and do as much as you can for this person, just knowing they're going to die. They were dying alone. Nobody should have to die alone when you're in a hospital under the care of a nurse. Everyone who goes into a hospital deserves the care of a nurse. And if the nurse is in another room and there's 4 other patients all with COVID, all dying, you can't be with every single one of them.
We had to advocate for well-known protocols and isolation strategies that we learned in college in simple human anatomy and physiology and micro. And we had administrators telling us that what we learned then was not the case and we didn't need to wear masks.
But when the second wave started to come, we knew what to face. We knew much better what we needed and when we needed it, and we told management that, and they just basically ignored us.
During bargaining, we were really getting nowhere with Trinity.
They were immovable about some of the basic things of humanity and hospitalization. It was unprecedented in my life.
We felt as though that our only tool was a strike, the only thing to make them stop and really pay attention to our needs.
I was personally out there every day. We got there at 7 in the morning and we stayed till about 5 in the evening. And it was winter, so we got there when it was dark and we left when it was dark. And it was pretty freezing cold. Physically, it was very demanding, but emotionally, it was very rewarding because we had all of our political leaders in our county and in our state.
The community and the local politicians were very supportive. One local politician said that we were doing angels work.
We had teachers and we had laborers, probably 5 or 6 different labor unions came and joined us, and the solidarity and the support was amazing. Every day, hour after hour, cars would drive by just honking their horns and waving and you know, raising their hands with us and say, keep going.
The community showed up with food and with money and beverages, you know, warm coffee and hot cocoa, and they were very supportive.
The press was nonstop. I was giving interviews every day, 2 and 3 times a day, and it was all major networks, it was local networks, it was international networks. My dear friend from California called me, I forget which day it was, 2nd or 3rd day, and she said, I just heard you on NPR radio. And I'm sorry, I'm so emotional, but it's all part of the PTSD that we had to go through to get to where we are today. But she's a doctorate at Stanford, and she said, I knew it was your voice, I heard your Philadelphia accent, and I knew I had to call you. And she said to me, keep doing what you're doing, because healthcare needs you more than ever.
Your administration would be the be-all, end-all, and you wouldn't have a voice, and it's given a voice to people who never had a voice before. They can advocate for themselves without fear.
For 3 years, I was looking over my back every single day, wondering, when is the axe going to fall? When are they going to fire me, or fire my brother, or fire any of us who were the founding leaders? But now we don't have to do that. Now we can really not concentrate on keeping our jobs. We can concentrate on doing what's best for the patients.
I didn't start this because of money. I started it because I felt like patients' lives were in jeopardy, not because of one practitioner or one nurse or one specific person in the building. I felt people's lives were in danger because of the entire process, and no one taking accountability for the entire thing.
There's a bright future for organized labor in healthcare because corporate America has stolen away the purpose and the focus and the center of what it should be.